It's not only about the bragging rights, it's about representation, prowess, flexibility, and adequate information for a solution-focused initiative. We crowned a champion in the third edition of the Speak and Solve initiative, SASI. It was a tough challenge, but an ultimate winner emerged. Taking the trophy, which has been in the custody of the Harare Institute of Technology, the Midland State University held the cup for the first time, marking themselves as the team to beat in the fourth edition of the SASI debate. They fought a good fight. Will they follow in the footsteps of their predecessors and be the winners this year? Do they have what it takes to take it home yet again?
Hello, my name is Nadia Mutisi. I'm a second-year law student at the University of Zimbabwe.
My name is Ebeneza Kudita from the University of Zimbabwe.
I'm very excited to be part of the 2021 SASI debate competition.
I think last year we came so close, but this year we're more than confident and ready that we are bringing the trophy home this year.
I think we've come so close so many times, and every other time that we came so close, we went back and we got the trophy. So definitely, University of Zimbabwe is coming to conquer in 2021.
My message is very clear that this year things are going to be different. This year they will see a team that they've never seen before, and they are most definitely going to lose this year.
Hello, I'm Courtney Tediwana Shijongwe.
And I'm Nelson Banda. We are Team MSUAS.
Manicaland State University of Applied Sciences. I feel very excited to be a part of this team, very honored as well, because Nelson and I make a very powerful team. The other team should be very excited to meet us as well.
Well, I feel very confident about this team.
Not only do I think that we stand a chance, I know that we stand a chance. You should expect greater and more amazing results this time around, because this time we are more stronger, powerful and readier than we were before.
I expect to take the trophy home this time around, given like 6 experience. We do stand a chance. Like last time we did better, and this time around I think we're going to do better again. Team MSUAS, sizzling fire, watch out!
They were 10. We are now down to 6. Pindura University, Great Zimbabwe, Midlands University, and GSU have been eliminated, but the debate continues. Still in contention are NUST, Lupane University, Africa University, Midland State University, UZ, and CUT, who are proceeding to the quarterfinals. But as we all know it, there can be only one champion. Who will it be? Stay with us and find out.
All right, so we're back with our second pairing for the day, Manicaland State University versus the University of Zimbabwe. Guys, you are almost at the semi-finals and ultimately at the finals. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very excited.
Is your microphone on as you're telling me about your excitement?
No, it's on. I'm feeling very excited and proud that you've at least made it this far.
If you could switch partners, just randomly, if you could switch partners, who would you pick?
If I could switch partners, I'll still take Nelson.
Look at her, so diplomatic and kind, but she had to think about it, which is where we should be worried. Nadia.
I think we're feeling amazing that we've made it this far and hopeful that we'll be able to break through.
That's not what I asked.
Oh,
I'm joking, no, sorry.
yes.
If you could switch partners, who would you pick?
I think Ebe and Nadia are a formidable pair. We've done this so many times. So
No, we're not doubting your formidability.
Okay.
Who would you pick from the other teams? Yeah, now I
From
need to
the other
ban you
teams,
guys from
Mary
picking your
Ann.
partners.
I love Mary Ann.
Is it because you're looking? It's because you're looking at each other.
Oh, no. Mary Ann is from
She's
NAS.
from,
Yeah.
yes, she's from NAS. But hey, can I tell her?
You can tell her.
Okay, all right.
We're faves.
Okay, right, let's get into it. So, our motion is this House believes that future generations should be able to sue the government for damages from the effects of climate change. Are we clear on our motion? I'm going to read it out one more time. This House believes that future generations should be able to sue the government for damages from the effects of climate change. We're going to go through our modalities once again. Now, affirmative, that is Manicaland State University. You will get 3 minutes to give us your opening speech. After your 3 minutes, University of Zimbabwe, you have 1 minute as the opposers to cross-examine them. After that is done, we will come to your opening speech, which is also 3 minutes. When that is done, the Manicaland State University will then have 1 minute to cross-examine you. When we're done, we will then have a rebuttal from University of Zimbabwe and then a rebuttal from Manicaland State University. We will then come back to our opposers, University of Zimbabwe, for a closing remark, and we will round the session off with closing remarks from the affirmative team, which is Manicaland State University. Are we clear on how we're going to work? All right, please let's remember to turn our microphones on and also make sure it is facing us as we speak. And when I say stop, we stop, whether it's mid-sentence, 3 words to sentence, you especially, 3 words to sentence. When I say stop, we stop, all right? Yes. I'm glad to see the highlighters have been maintained. All right, Manicaland State University, are you ready to begin?
Yes.
All right, your clock starts now.
Panel. Climate change is the altering of weather patterns that proves to be disastrous. And this is as a result of carbon emissions, CFC's emissions, and radicals into the atmosphere, damaging the ozone layer, leaving Earth vulnerable and future generations without much of a future. So this House believes that future generations should be able to sue the government from the damages or from the effects of climate change. Right, panel, we are going to justify suing the government for the effects that result from climate change. So the legal grounds upon which one can sue the government are as follows. If we can prove that we are suffering from climate change, so I will prove that we are suffering from climate change. Take, for example, the Tuvalu Islands. There are rising tides that go above 2 meters. Again, the thinning of ice caps is happening at a rate of 40%. Again, the disappearing of ice caps is happening at 40%. And closer to home, here in Zimbabwe, seasons are shifting, that if we do not deal with this issue, we end up having rains mid-June. So we are indeed suffering from climate change, and we have enough grounds to sue the government. Secondly, we must be able to prove that the defendant, and in this case the government, is directly responsible or indirectly responsible for the issue here, that is climate change. So, for example, take the Inuit community which sued the US for not following the Kyoto Protocol. So, this is evidence by the case of the Inuit community versus the USA that a scientific study was done and discovered that the US government is responsible for 25% of carbon emissions, and upon closer inspection, it was realized that per individual in a US citizen emit 5 times the carbon footprint of all other nationalities. So yes, we have proper grounds to sue the government. Right. For one to be able again to sue the government, you must also be able to prove that if the defendant stops the activity that is considered to be causing the climate change, then climate change will stop or the damage will be rectified. So, panel, we have rights. We have rights to property of indigenous people have rights to property. Okay, this right says that people are allowed to enjoy their native land. So if you live in ice caps, you should be able to live in those ice caps forever or for as long as you like. So you are entitled to build your house and stay there for as long as you like, and without the threat of natural disasters, and the government is posing threats of natural disasters. So every individual have a right to health, which is being affected by this climate change, because when climate change occurs or when natural disasters
Time.
occur.
Are you ready with your cross-examination? Ready. Your clock starts now.
All right, Mr. Speaker, could you tell us what you think the problem in this particular debate is today?
The problem is on climate change, which has brought devastating effects on the human fraternity.
Okay, so you're trying to reduce climate change in essence, right?
Right, we're trying to reduce climate change. That's the issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Who do you think are the biggest contributors to climate change?
The government is the biggest contributor to climate change because it is allowing climate change to continue occurring.
Okay, how do you think you can measure the responsibility of particularly the Zimbabwean government to climate change as a whole?
Okay, we can measure the responsibility of the government because the government is entitled itself to certain protocols such as the Geneva Protocol. It has promised us to keep us safe.
Okay, thank you very much. What do you think you can do with the money that you're given for damages? Because it's very little money, if you must know.
Sorry, come again?
What do you think you can do with the nominal damages that you're then awarded?
The nominal damages that we are then
Awarded. Time.
award.
I don't know if anyone's noticed Nadia's stance throughout this. She's like, Spanish, don't mess with me. I'm coming for you. I love it. Love it. Are you ready with your opening remarks, opposers? All right, your clock starts now.
We can all agree that climate change is a very big issue. The question we need to ask ourselves is number one.
Your mic is off?
We can all agree that the question therefore becomes, how then do we best address issues of climate change? Government bench needs to prove to us, number one, how suing will help in solving the problem, and if at all it will do so. But before we get to that, we need to understand one thing, the context of developing nations. What role can you assign climate change and something, we call it global warming, it's global for a reason. What role do you assign individual government responsibility for something that is happening at a global scale? In a country like Zimbabwe and developing nations that do not have industrialization and large industries, how then do you sue them for infrastructures or for things that happen by transnational companies and by multinational companies and by other foreign countries? We think this is a very important debate in this debate. Also, we need to understand that developing nations have a very important burden. The primary burden of governments right now is, are my people fed? Are my people employed? Are my people working? It's very difficult to ask governments of developing nations to focus on the environment when their people are suffering and there are real issues affecting the people. It's been proven by statistics that people worry about the environment more when their basic needs have been very taken care of. How do you ask a Zimbabwean child who's been unemployed to worry about the environment when they do not have any food on the table for tonight or the next day? We think that the priorities of government, especially developing nations, are totally different from anything else, number one. So it's very difficult for you to expect them and sue them for prioritizing the needs of their very own people before the environment. But number two, it's also very difficult for you to sue them for things that they're not primarily responsible for. Like what industries is Zimbabwe contributing in terms of global warming? We think global warming happens by, number one, the big oil companies that are in the world, and number two, the other foreign governments. We think there needs to be a discussion about that also. But also we need to have a discussion about the nature of governments. Let's assume that, we're just assuming for a moment, let's assume they're right and say government is responsible and we're suing you. Who suffers the most? When you say government needs to pay money, they're going to pay that money how? By taxing you, and meaning that at the end of the day, there's no proper solution that happens, number one. Number two, also even if you sue governments, we've known developing nation governments don't pay money and they don't pay back. We think you don't solve any problems. You can just sue for the sake of suing, which is just wasting time. Also, when you say future generation, which is something that they tended to ignore, we're talking about future generation and future governments. What then that does is that it makes current governments complacent to say that, okay, we can do things now, the suing will only happen in the future. The question that we need to ask ourselves in this debate, how best do we do the solution, and is their solution effective at all? But also we need to understand that the debate also boils down to a lot of things, effectiveness of a policy. When you propose a certain policy, you need to understand, are these policies effective? Also, it's very difficult to sue government because governments are ever changing, democracies change, regimes change, things are a lot of changing. So how then do you sue something that way, for example, certain parties in leadership now and in the future, a different party, we have different goals and different agendas. But also understand this, climate change is the big issue. So when people vote for government in terms of their climate change issues. Donald Trump made it clear that I do not prioritize the environment and he was voting into power. I mean that this is what the people wanted. Thank you.
And he's so disappointed that he couldn't go on. He had a lot to say, I'm sure. All right, are you ready with your cross-examination?
Yes.
Yes, your microphone.
Yes,
I'll ask you actually to both turn on your microphone so you're both ready to, respond to each other. All right, your clock starts now.
All right. Yes, I'm ready. The first question is it not the government's duty to reinforce laws concerning climate changes and collect taxes or revenues forcibly if they have to do so in the event that they're trying to solve climate change issues?
Gordon, if you're listening, I said the government's primary duty is to make sure that its citizens are employed, to make sure that its citizens are fed first and foremost. It's very difficult to ask a government that has high unemployment to focus on environment when the key issues are not solved. But even if it was their responsibility, we still think governments are doing so. You said in your speech that the question is about direct responsibility. Failure to enforce does not translate into direct responsibility. Direct means government is polluting. It's not direct, this is indirect. You don't meet your own burden of proof.
My second question will be, is it not that the individuals vote those governments into power to enact and regulate those laws that slow down the climate change?
As I mentioned earlier on, governments make sure, tell you their policy on climate change, and if you choose to vote them, it's how do you then sue them?
Opposers, it is your time to give us a rebuttal. I was a bit worried for a microphone for a second. I'm glad to see it's still in one piece. All right, are you ready? Your clock starts now.
Panel, in the words of Greta Thunberg, how dare you? Panel, we think that it is very ridiculous for someone to come here and tell us that, oh, we think that what we're trying to do in this particular debate is to, contain climate change and to limit it, and then say, oh no, future generations are then the ones that are going to come and sue. What that means is exactly what Ebenezer has been trying to tell you. That Greta Thunberg comes and she tells you that you can't say Agenda 2050, you can't say Agenda 2080 because you're pushing things forward. It's even worse when the whole panel comes and tells you, oh, Agenda future generations. Future generations what? The year 23,000? Is that when they're going to start then enacting these particular policies? We think that this particular problem we have today, or this particular debate, is very urgent. Therefore, it's very important that we're looking at the urgency of these particular things. We speak of the idea of complacency and that pushing solutions into the future is not going to solve anything, is not going to help anyone. As a law student, I'll tell you what damages look like in the courts, right? Damages are not supposed to make you rich. So in essence, you're going to be given money, and that money in terms of Zimbabwe is not even going to be useful like the next day or like 3 weeks from now, right? Because you're probably going to be given that money in RTGS, right? We think that you're not going to be like compensated in a way that you actually want to be compensated. Why? Because if it's going to be future generations, this population is even bigger. So it's no longer 14 million or 13 million. This is now like maybe like 100 million people that need all of these damages from this particular government, right? Are they going to be able to do anything specific with these particular damages? We don't think so. What we think is that this particular delegation ought to come here and give us a proper solution. We think that solution is thinking is very important in this particular debate. What a solution is thinking look like? It looks like R&D, it looks like research and development, putting those damages that you're going to give to people into quaternary sector in order for people to be able to survive. Esther Bosrop says that necessity is the mother of invention. How can we then invent things when we're giving you the money that you can't even use because it's very little money that's going to 100 million people, right? Panel, we tell you that when we look, we need to be looking at the issue of effectiveness of our particular policies, right? We saw the nature of Zimbabwean politics, that or the nature of African politics necessarily, right? Whereby we tell you that even if we tell you that we're going to give you these damages, you're probably not going to be able to receive those particular damages. Old people, 78-year-olds, 90-year-olds are queuing outside POSB trying to get their pensions because there's no pension for these particular people. Then you're going to tell us that we're supposed to deal with something such as climate change, which is a very, very small issue in terms of like how the normal Zimbabwean views it or how an old person is going to view it in our society, right? We tell you that it doesn't really change anything for you to say we're going to sue the government. It's not going to change anything because number one, Ebenezer tells you that we're still going to tax you, we're still going to get our money back in some kind of way. It doesn't change anything. We tell you that who is the person who's responsible for these particular things. We'll tell you transnational corporations. We'll tell you that some years ago, Apple hit the $1 trillion mark. There are transnational corporations that are more powerful than our nations. Zimbabwe looks up to Apple. Like the countries that we find in Africa, or most countries in Africa, look up to Apple, look up to TikTok, look up to Spotify, because these particular companies have a lot of like, they emitting a lot of carbon gases and are contributing so much to climate change, right? So therefore, we cannot say that we're going to then sue the government for things that Apple and Spotify and blockchain technology companies are doing. We think that it's not reasonable. We think that it's not going to solve anything. Rather, invest in solutionist thinking. Thank you.
All right, are you ready with your rebuttal? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Your clock starts now.
Okay, so firstly, you talked about the future being 2023. Tomorrow is the future. We don't have to wait for 2023 to arrive so that we can say now we are in the future. So that part, therefore, we believe that the future generations should be able to sue the government for the damages from the effects of climate change. We are the future, and we are the generation that should actually start taking part. So we are not saying we should wait for our children's children to come here and then start advocating for suing of the government. No, we are saying we are the future. We should take a stance and do something about what's going on in our country, what's going on our environment. And secondly, you talked about, I asked the first speaker, actually no. Secondly, the first speaker talked about food, that the government should be addressing issues concerning food. How then now is we are, as you all know, that this country, Zimbabwe, is actually a landlocked country, and we are depending on our land. How then do you expect us to have food that we eat when we don't even have the land for us to actually cultivate on? We're talking about seasonal changes, like my partner actually mentioned. When we've got climate change going on, the seasonal changes are just so drastic that we will not be able to actually pinpoint when the rain is going to come and when the rain is actually not going to come. So at the end of the day, you cannot say that we should focus more on food and neglect the environment that is producing the food that we need to give to our community. And also the last point being, I asked you that, is it not an individual's right to vote? It is an individual's right to vote. We say that the individuals are the ones that are putting the governments in power. Therefore, it is their right for them to sue the government, because in the first place, we are the ones that put them in place. Therefore, they should be serving our needs. We put them there so that they protect us. We have civil rights, okay? And we have the right, like my partner previously mentioned, we have the right to property, which says that I should have the right to choose where I want to stay. If I want to stay by the sea, I should be able to stay by the sea and not worry about the tides that are rising at such a rapid rate. If I want to stay by the ice, I should be able to stay by the ice and live there comfortably, not worrying about the ice caps that are melting. And secondly, we also have the right to help. Disasters are coming here and they are breaking our legs. They are causing casualties that sometimes are really drastic. And because of this house says that future generations should be able to sue the government for the damages, because we are putting them in place for them to protect us. And if they're not protecting us, they're not doing their job. Therefore, we should be able to sue them because they're not protecting our rights as what we voted them to do. And lastly, we have issues of the Kyoto Protocol. You said that how can we sue a government? The Kyoto Protocol is a protocol that every single country actually signs into to say, you know what, if I fail...
Time. You know, I agree with you. People should be allowed. If you want to live in the ice, I personally want to go live in space, I should be allowed. All right. We are moving on to closing remarks. Opposers, do you have your points in order? All right, your clock starts now.
At the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves a number of important questions. One, does the solution that they propose solve the problem? Two, is it reasonable to assign blame on governments from developing nations? The two most important questions in the debate, and the way you answer the two determines who wins. Firstly, in terms of problem solution, we explained earlier on that even if we were to assume that everything they're saying is correct, the solution they propose does not solve problem. They say that we need to worry about our land. But do damages give you land? Does a payment in money give you back your land? Does the damages in land melt, like freeze up back to ice caps? We need to understand that the scale of global warming is global. Local solutions do not solve global problems. We think that's one they don't understand in this debate. Number two, the question we need to ask ourselves, are governments responsible? She mentioned something very important. She said that governments are elected, and that's very true. If you look at America, Donald Trump was very clear when he was running for president that he does not value the environment, he values the economy. And people still voted him into power. So how then do you vote someone who told you that he won't value the climate change and then say you want to sue him when you voted into power after he told you that I'm prioritizing the economy? We think that doesn't make sense. But also we need to focus on, in terms of the debate, in terms of the nature of global warming and how the biggest contributors to global warming are companies, transnational companies, the foreign countries, and not developing nations. If you look at the scale of developing nations, contribute less than 15% of all the global warming that happens, and you say that they should be responsible for all the problems that you have. We think that's very, very difficult. But also you need to understand that what should be the priority of developing nations? Should developing nations prioritize environment, which by the one is a solution that no one really can solve, no one is able to solve global warming, or should they prioritize solutions that are the most pertinent things in their issue? Do their citizens have food? Do their citizens have jobs? And are the citizens well fed? Those are the issues that developing nations should be prioritizing, and not solutions that they can't solve or things that are out of your control. You cannot sue someone for things that are out of their control. Panel, thank you very much.
time with a minute to spare. Okay. Well, second rather to spare. Well done. All right. Team Affirmative, you've got your closing in order?
Yes, we do.
Okay, your clock will begin now.
So, panel, the non-affirmative guys are worried about the solution that we've brought here. They are worried about its effectiveness. But when it comes to effectiveness, we need then to question ourselves with that what other solution do we have in our current repertoire to answer this problem? We do not have any other solution. So therefore, we'll go for this solution. So, panel, we have alluded to the grounds that which needs to be satisfied, or to the ground that which needs to be satisfied so that one is able to sue the government. Now, we take you through why sue the government. Why should we sue the government particularly? So the government has a social civil contract with its citizens and other governments to protect them and their liberties. This is saying that any government is free to pursue its interests as long as they do not bring harm to others. So this is the first principle of international law, and we respect that because climate change is happening at a global level. So another reason that we should sue the government is that the government should act in the best interest of its citizens as they have ceded their rights, because we vote governments to act in our best interest, e.g. providing waste disposal services. So coming back closer to home, now no one can deny the fact that this country is the poorest. This country does the poorest when it comes to service delivery, such as providing waste disposals. So for the same reason why governments have a responsibility to protect citizens from conflict is the same way that they have to protect citizens from the threat of global warming. Already the government has set laws and formulated services delivery system that should cater for waste disposal, carbon emissions, etc. But they have displayed that they are failing and should be held accountable, and therefore we're saying we should sue the government. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Just out of curiosity, let's eliminate you from the competition. I'm not eliminating you. Just saying let's, okay. Who would you like to see take home the trophy? You've been eliminated, Eb. You are not part of it. Who else?
I would love to see Kat take home the trophy.
Why?
Because I think they are very underrated team, and they can potential to do very well in this tournament.
All right, okay. Same question to you guys. I've eliminated you from the... You're back in the competition. I've eliminated you from the competition. Who do you think you would like to see take the trophy home?
Oh, that's a very difficult question.
That's not you. You're out of the competition.
Oh, okay. Yo. Okay, so far I've debated with two teams so far, and I think the UZ guys, if they are still in the competition, they deserve to take the they deserve to take it.
Okay, so luckily I put you back in, so he thinks you should win. All right. All right, so now you and me have both experienced, well, we're currently experiencing the effects of climate change. I mean, we can see it, extended droughts, natural disasters, even the unusual weather patterns that we're witnessing. These are all a result of global warming and the change that it is impacting around the world. Now, who do you think we should be holding accountable for making sure these extremities that we are witnessing don't get any worse? Let us know in the comment section. Of course, remember the hashtags are hashtag SASI for hope and hashtag SASI debate 2021. We have one more pairing in this round before we go to the semi-finals and ultimately the finals. Who are you vouching for? Let us know that as well, and we will be back shortly.
Hi guys, my name is Giselle. Hi guys, my name is Maya. Child abuse must come to a stop. If you have been abused, call the Say White call center number 577 if in case of abuse.